And what I was saying about composure, I was going to actually bring the book today that was written back in the 80s, and it's a sports psychology book. And there was nothing about, so the things that I'm saying today, that's not Ken stuff. This was stuff that they were sports psychologists, they were talking about, teaching their athletes this sensation of flow. And so when an athlete is in this flow state, their awareness of physical dimension and time seems to just, slow down, and they perform at this peak period. And then they went on to say, unfortunately, inexperienced coaches and athletes will often give up prematurely until they develop these new control skills. But ultimately, the highest level of performance is going to come from when they're most composed.
Whoa. So what does this mean for everyone who just listened to that and went, I want some of that?
In terms of?
In terms of they're like, I want that composure. And I want to have to get into those flow states.
Yeah, well, it is.
Because a lot of people that are listening to this want to be high performers, or they are high performers, and they're looking at either the 1%ers, 5%ers, or they're like, how am I damn well going to get there?
Well, they have to go back to some initial state, and they've got to look at themselves being in this calm, composed state with the mildest of stimulus and see exactly, let's just say, look at that pec flow. Or one of the best things to do is a free squat, and done properly, where you're pushing back with your hips and trying to keep your shin as vertical as possible, that arched over. Nothing is going to expose underlying anxiety within a person faster than what those squats will do. So even though they might be mildly hanging onto a bar, they're not pulling themselves up and down with their hands. The hands are just there to supply a grid. So the feet are fixed points, the hands are fixed points. So that's your grid, compliant to gravity. So gravity comes this way, the ocean goes that way. So there's math involved in that. And we've got to comply to that mathematical rule. If we're off centre from those type of things, there's going to be distortions. But as they start to descend slowly...
guys, just on this, what Ken's talking about, descending slowly, I'm meaning if you're going to apply one of these squats, it's like a 20 to 30 to 40 second descent.
Yeah. Even shorter will do the trick. Like even if you come down and say, right, I'm going to go down, say for 5 to 10 seconds going down, that's just enough. And then people will go down slowly. They'll start to experience a bit of anxiety already as a result of that. Their logical brain will say, this is going to keep getting worse if I keep going down.
Shake.
But because of the amount of areas of our body being stimulated, there's large areas, and the adductor pathway in particular, there's a huge heap of real estate up in the brain dedicated just to the adductor process, because quads and hamstrings, that's just forward and back. The adductor pathway, that's got to manage the whole 360 degrees. So if you drew a circle and you just got a whole heap of dots and put it in there, that's the representation up in the brain. And the fact that our groin is there, and like I said, if something comes in that space, we're going to slam our legs. So it's interconnected to the emotion region of the brain, the fear centers, so hugely interconnected. So as a person starts to go down like that, sometimes you'll see their legs wanting to come together because that's moving into that state of protection, and then coming back up really slowly. And often they'll see a tremor that's associated with that. And I do a lot of work with tremor, but it's got to be the right sort of tremor. And that's a lot to do with the anxiety that's in there. So when they come up, but they'll feel the anxiety. And then, part of the program that people engage in neurophysics therapy is they've got to do 30 of those things with a little bit of load. So it's like 5 seconds down, it's only 5 second rule, 5 seconds back up, and they get to learn a lot about themselves during that period of time. But anybody can just do that little test to go down slowly, descend, hold at the bottom and come up slowly without anxiety dictating what they do next. So if a person's coming up and they're feeling that anxiety and they suddenly put a move on to move out of that space, it just says anxiety dictates what they do next.
What Ken means by that is when your mind is you go, oh, I've got to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is uncomfortable and I've got to get out. Or, oh, it's not that hard, but it's really hurting in this one spot. Oh, this part of my body that I haven't felt before is aching. I have to stop. Blah, blah, blah. X, Y, Z, like all of those things sort of pop up. And then that's when you realize I was like, no, it's not that heavy. You're going slow. You definitely have 20 to go. Mm. And then you have that daunting thought that, oh my goodness, there's 20 to go. I can't do it. Mm. And then halfway through you start having, all of these, sense of anxiety come up. Is that correct? Because that's what happens to me.
But it'll happen to people on one rep.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. Like you're getting elite athletes and they're breaking. Like I've had them. Like these are high performance athletes who've broken down. You put them in that situation. It's just on the hack squat, the squatting machine. So there's no weight on it. It's just the machine itself. And they start to go down, and the anxiety that starts to appear, even on the leg press. Feet turned out, knees, keeping the knees wide, weight on the heels, coming down, targeting that pathway. Doing that leg press, no weight on it, really slowly, you'll start to see the anxiety appear. And all they're doing is getting information from their own body that they become offended with.